Welcome to The Exchange with KB. The Exchange is a short-form podcast where we get to know interesting people, their thoughts on blockchain, building and scaling businesses, success and failure, and much more. Today, I'd like to introduce Heidi Pease. Heidi is the founder and CEO of LA Blockchain Lab, a collaboration of academia, government, and businesses building blockchain ecosystems. And she's also the founder and CEO of Proof of Art social funding platform, which provides business solutions for artists using blockchain. Welcome, Heidi.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, awesome. I'm really looking forward to talking to you here. Let's just start out with just learning a little bit about you. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, just in general? I mean, maybe start out where you went to school and give us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. So my background actually is not in technology. I started off in acting, in the arts. My family, my mother's an actress, my sister-in-law is a muralist, my sister's a harpist. I could go on and on. We come from a long line of artists. But when I moved to Los Angeles, I found it challenging to know which path to take and to both support myself and pursue an acting career. So I ended up getting a job at AIG and worked in mortgage-backed securities. Never really had any intention of being in business, but I did quite well and moved up the ranks and left about 1 week before the crisis, which is actually 10 years ago. And I thought there had to be a better way to our financial system. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why our financial system, for the Great Recession, but in my opinion, three of the reasons is: one, there's just too much greed; two, there was too much power in the hands of too few institutions; and three, the data that was transmitted between these institutions was very often unclear and definitely not transparent, which is problematic for a company that's very data-driven. So fast forward, I ended up getting my MBA at Anderson, and I just really wanted to make a difference with my life. And so I thought, I'd like to set up a company. Why do we need banks anymore, especially when it relates to mortgage-backed securities? At the end of the day, the banks will send out a loan to the primary market and then take those loans and basically bundle them and sell them immediately to a secondary market. So my thought was, why couldn't we not just connect the primary and secondary markets? And not being a technologist, I wasn't really aware of all the technology that we kept designing was just too cost prohibitive until I came across blockchain, which was January of last year. And it took me a while because honestly, I didn't even have a Facebook account before then. I thought there's no way I'm going to be in technology. But once I got through some of the wording of cryptography, immutable, distributed, decentralized, all this thick wording, I had my aha moment, and I really fell in love with what the potential of this technology could be. The problem was, though, at that time, Kirill, when I went to go hire developers and speak to investors here in Southern California, I couldn't find anybody to hire. And the investors that I spoke to at the time thought I was talking about a new chain link fence that goes around blocks. I had no idea. So that's when I went back to my alma mater, which is UCLA, and I said, you guys invented the internet, quote unquote, and it was UCLA, USC, UCI, or Stanford, and I think University of Utah, in addition to the Department of Defense. But why are we not developing a pipeline of future leaders, innovators, developers in this space? Because this is the next internet. And that was really the start of the LA Blockchain Lab, which is a collaboration of academia, government, and businesses focused on building a sustainable blockchain ecosystem. And right now our partners are, we work with UCLA, USC, UCI, Caltech, the City of Los Angeles, Panasonic, Lamborghini, and some other businesses within Southern California.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'll add one other thing. It's been quite a roller coaster ride, mostly up. It's been amazing, but shortly thereafter, I got a phone call from Richard Branson's office inviting me to the Richard Branson Blockchain Summit on his private island in Necker Island. And there I had an opportunity to it was an amazing opportunity to meet with some of these world thought leaders in blockchain. There were about 5 billionaires, 2 prime ministers, an astronaut, and myself. And I at the time, I couldn't figure out why I was there, but it was such an amazing, humbling experience because we spent the whole entire week talking about how blockchain can help improve the world.
Wow. And Richard Branson was present as well?
Yes.
That's awesome.
My entrepreneurial hero.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really amazing. So you've had quite a journey. So what's the like the day-to-day of Blockchain Lab? What does that look like? Can you take us through a typical day?
Yes, sure. Well, just to let you know, I do wear 2 hats, and that is the CEO, co-founder of Blockchain Lab, LA Blockchain Lab, and also Proof of Art. And so sometimes my days are commingled with the different activities, but really, we are focused on, there's a lot of hype, as you know, in this space. And so we really want to focus on a sustainable blockchain ecosystem. So how do we do that? We help by educating through tools, whether it's helping with coding classes, to helping executives better understand how blockchain may or may not impact their businesses. So we've helped design curriculum for some of the extension courses that are taught here in Southern California, as well as some of the syllabus that are being taught at the universities right now.
Mm-hmm. Great. So it's like you guys have like a co-working facility, or if I'm in LA, is this something I can go to, or how does it work?
No, we are actually, I'd like to say we're like a living blockchain. We are totally decentralized and distributed.
Okay.
We really, we don't have a one place in particular. We're all volunteers. We really help encourage our partners to have events. And then we ourselves will host these types of meetups that are more so, we support the universities and what they're doing, and then and they will have conferences and meetups, and then we have our own meetups, but those are much more geared towards executives,
Mm-hmm.
CEO, CTO, CIO level.
Gotcha. Okay, very cool. And you teach a little bit at UCLA, is that right?
I have been a guest lecturer,
Okay.
but there are people that are on our team that do teach at UCLA and at USC.
Awesome. That's amazing. So that you guys are doing a ton of work there. And is UCLA, I mean, do you find the institution very open and supportive, and are they interested in blockchain tech? And is that kind of what they're thinking about a lot these days?
So I won't speak about UCLA in particular, just talk about academic institutions in general. I think my experience with them is that, yes, of course, they are very interested, and some of them have been teaching, maybe not necessarily blockchain, but have been institutional leaders in cryptography and distributed ledger technology. So this is not anything new to them. However, one thing that distinguishes academia is that they are very much theoretical focused, which obviously we know that, right? They're not so much focused on jobs training. So that's where we like to supplement their programs, which is more coding specific, very specific training. But they are very aware. In fact, the schools themselves are doing some really progressive things. USC has a blockchain minor. Wow. UCI had the country's, if not the world's largest women in blockchain conference. And so they're very, very progressive and really looking into research opportunities.
Excellent. Yeah, very, very interesting. So, and also, I mean, as far as you mentioned just a few sentences ago, you mentioned about that when you heard about blockchain. Could you remember the actual like moment? I mean, when did you learn about Bitcoin or blockchain technology? How did you get into it in the beginning?
Well, I went to a seminar in 2013 when I was getting my MBA at Anderson, and it was about Bitcoin. And I had no idea what he was talking about. I should have done some homework before. And it's unfortunate, obviously. I wish I would have invested back then. But then fast forward, and again, it wasn't until January of 2017 where I really started to deep dive into blockchain. And I went to a conference at Stanford. It was focused, it was for engineers. So the majority of the conversation was new to me, and perhaps I really only understood maybe 1 to 10%. But that was just enough for me to start thinking, wow, what is the difference between centralized and decentralized, and how is that impactful? And why is cryptography and security so important? And it really just started to open up my mind to ask those questions. So
Okay.
I think shortly thereafter was my aha moment.
Okay. And as far as like the blockchain technology itself, what do you think are some of the best use cases that you've come across? I mean, you must see quite a number of different things that people are doing through, through your contacts and through running the blockchain lab and other places. But what do you think are the sort of the most inspiring to you personally, or the best types of use cases that you've seen recently for blockchain?
That's a great question, because there's so, when we say the word blockchain, it's such a
I
huge,
know.
such a huge word. And I could talk about supply chain management. I could talk about voting rights and so forth. I think personally, something that I'm really excited about is the data, our data management, our personal data, privacy protection, and even monetization of our personal data. That's not something I really learned early on. Obviously, the first thing when I learned about blockchain was, wow, you can disintermediate the banks, and maybe we wouldn't have had the Great Recession had we had this blockchain tool around. But I really am excited about this data, because data is the currency of the 21st century. And, I just read an article the other day, when you do a two-factor authentication with Facebook and you put your phone number on there, your phone number now gets sold. And I can't tell you, my phone, 98% of my phone calls are telemarketers. And it just is so frustrating that I don't have the privacy that I should have. So I'm really excited about that. Now, we've actually seen some use cases in Estonia being one of them. They actually launched a blockchain type system way back in 2012. And it's for citizens to record their data, and they're notified if somebody's accessing their data, and that citizen can actually see them.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Estonia is really a beacon. I'm actually an e-citizen of Estonia. I've been so for about a year. They've done some wonderful things, so it's great to hear that you've heard about some of the things that they've been doing.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And I also have, the reason why I love blockchain is because the potential it has to really help make this world a better place and reduce barriers to knowledge and wealth. So obviously I'm going to love things like the World Identity Network, which is helping with identity crises around the world, or how the UN is using blockchain for the refugees, or how Hernando de Soto is talking about blockchain and land title rights for indigenous people, to tracking in a supply chain to make sure that what you truly buy has not used any kind of child slave labor, whether that's blood diamonds to chocolates. So for me, that's where I'm most impassioned, is how blockchain can be used to help improve the world. Not just in financials, which of course financial does help too. It is potentially helping the 2 billion unbanked or underbanked people around the world. But there are other opportunities as well, like those supply chain and the tracking of data.
Sure. So yeah, great thoughts there. I mean, as far as blockchain, right? It's this big decentralized system, database, or however you wanna call it. It has completely different use cases. What do you think is the relationship between cryptocurrency, which obviously we've seen a lot of volatility there recently, and a lot of projects that are not perhaps doing as well as some people expected? What do you think the relationship between crypto and blockchain tech, right? Because if we have a decentralized system, in a lot of cases, these people who make up that network, the miners, right, they want to get paid in some way. Do you think that there is some kind of a symbiotic relationship, and how do you see the two coexisting in these volatile markets?
If I understand the question correctly, is that what is the relationship and how do they coexist between the cryptocurrency and some blockchain-based applications?
Yeah, because if we have a decentralized blockchain, Usually it's made up of people who are miners who are independent of each other, right? And they run these nodes, and they do get, some kind of compensation a lot of times. And
Yeah.
that has been in the form of crypto. So I just want to get your take on how you think the cryptocurrency volatility potentially impacts the blockchain technology, or maybe it doesn't.
The speculative volatility of the cryptocurrency. Okay.
Yes.
Well, first, one thing I would like to make my personal note on this is that mining is supposed to be decentralized theoretically, but I don't think that that's what's happening. When 30%, we're seeing large mining operations actually becoming bigger and actually franchising in this space. So I'm also very excited about other types of blockchains that will be coming out in the near future that may or may not necessarily need all of the energy consumption it takes today. But we can save that discussion for another time. I do think so. The volatility, if nothing changes today, and there's no other new model, and we're still based upon a blockchain that uses cryptocurrency. I actually think that having all of these numerous thousands of cryptocurrencies will actually, we're going to see a lot of those fall off in the next couple of years. And when that happens, I'm hopeful that there would be some more stability in the tokens themselves. I actually think that right now the speculation is, it's been great for blockchain community because it's brought in a lot of attention, but I also think that it's been very harmful in that the focus has been on the speculative aspect of the tokens. And putting on my startup hat right now, if I were to launch an ICO, great. Of course, I'd love $50 million, $100 million in the door. But if you're thinking about long-term sustainability of my company or of this whole ecosystem, any kind of bubble is dangerous. And so I think I'm hopeful that there would become some more stability in the coins and that there would be less speculation and much more focus on the underlying technology, which I think that we're actually underestimating today.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I mean, I think it's been too volatile of a market, but just like with bubbles, I mean, they tend to blow up. They tend to get bigger and then they blow up, and then the companies that shake out of that should be real businesses. I mean, as far as like where we are today in blockchain, as it compares to let's say like the internet age, right? We had a bubble during the .com early 2000s. The internet kind of startup ecosystem really began in the mid to late 90s, and then we had the bubble bursting in the early 2000s. Where do you think we are today? Are we at that bubble burst moment in blockchain? Are we past that? Before that? Where do you think we are?
That's a great question. And quite honestly, I've been avoiding the discussions around cryptocurrency because I almost think it's a little bit harmful. But I think that I do believe that there will be the value of certain cryptocurrencies will start to go up because of supply and demand, especially as the less successful cryptocurrencies fall off. But again, I really think that, have you heard of Amara's Law? I strongly believe in Amara's Law, which is we tend to overestimate the effect of a technology in the short run and underestimate the effect in the long run. And I think that's really where we're at right now. Is the focus has been so much on the speculative aspect of cryptocurrencies, not really necessary on all of the effect that blockchain can have in the long run. So just like the internet boom, there wasn't really, we see the greater financial opportunities and the greater impact after that internet bubble.
Great. All right. Thank you for that. Let's talk a little bit more about yourself. I was reading just a little bit about you, and you mentioned that Galileo is one of your role models. Could you say why he is one of your role models? I mean, I read all kinds of different information about different people, and I just found it fascinating that you had Galileo on there as one of your role models.
Well, I think that Galileo is just symbolic of what I would consider a role model or a hero to me in general, and that is somebody who truly believes or has found his or her passion or purpose and truly believes unequivocally with a conviction, an idea, despite what others around them say. And obviously, Galileo gave up his life for his concepts, as have numerous other heroes around us in this world. But I truly do admire, especially in today's society of social media, and we're so influenced by the likes and the comments, and especially in our political setting in this world today. For me, I really aspire and am inspired by those that are just truly have that integrity and a conviction in their belief. And it's not about selling out, or it's not about what will earn you the most votes, or but really believing and having that passion. That's what I call integrity, and doing something good with it. So I think, unfortunately, there are people probably out there today like that, but those people are being drowned out by some of the leaders that we see currently today, which is unfortunate.
I agree with you 100%. I was going to say that I was just thinking that there's not that many of those people out there, but then as you were talking, I thought that there is still a good number of them out there, except that their opinions aren't heard, because unfortunately, in my view, what we see in politics and in popular media these days is just the opposite of that.
Yes. And there are those heroes out there that I'm starting to appreciate more so now than ever. And those are the people, everyday heroes, that put their lives on the line for other people, or might sacrifice something for their fellow neighbor. And that's something that I'm starting to appreciate more and more, that maybe I hadn't in the past. I was always looking to these grandiose heroes, but I think there are those heroes that live amongst us, and perhaps we need to better recognize them.
Sure. As far as like the blockchain or the general business space is concerned, who is your, I wouldn't call them a hero, but who do you read? Who do you listen to, books wise, podcasts, blogs, etc.? Are there people like that you regularly follow?
There are resources that I look to. One of them, obviously, being Laura Shin. She's got some amazing podcasts. Another is Michael Casey. He has written a couple of great books. The latest being The Truth Machine. I follow the Global Business Blockchain Council. They are doing some amazing things in this space, from a much bigger level than we are at LA Blockchain Lab, but they're working with like the World Economic Forum or the World Bank and heads of states to really help create a sustainable blockchain ecosystem that's helpful for moving our planet forward. So I do follow that. I also follow Stanford's cybersecurity department and stay abreast of some of the cybersecurity issues that are out there.
Very interesting. And what motivates you every day? When you wake up in the morning, what excites you about going into work that day?
Yeah, I am the most exhausted and excited at the same time. It's the weirdest feeling. I seriously get, on a good day, 5 hours of sleep. And unfortunately, my personal life has gone out the door. My personal health has gone out the door. I do things like eat Cheetos for dinner now because I just don't have time. But with all of that, the reason why I do that is because I truly believe that blockchain is one of the best technological tools that we have that can help improve the world by reducing barriers and promoting and democratizing accessibility to knowledge and wealth like we've perhaps never seen before. And the fact that I, in some small way, can be a part of it is really humbling for me and motivating. And I'm just so thankful that I'm a part of this whole new experiment. And I hope it goes the right way. Who knows? But that's what really, really excites me. I have found my professional purpose in life.
That's excellent. I mean, it is exciting to be a part of these times. I mean, I was a little bit younger during the internet .com boom and whatnot, so I didn't really feel like I went through that. But I completely agree with you. It's so exciting to be part of this new technology, new way of doing things these days. With blockchain and so forth. And I completely agree with what you're saying there. We touched on politics a little bit, and I don't really want to get into politics. It's not the purpose of the conversation. But what do you think of the role of women in blockchain? Is it any different? I mean, we hear a lot about the different movements, the Me Too movement, the different things that are happening in the wider world, I guess, in the United States. But do you think that women have a bigger role or same role? I mean, what do you think of the women in blockchain? What responsibilities and roles do they have to play there as it relates to some of the traditional spaces that you've seen?
Yes. So I come from corporate America, and my perspective from there is that there just needs to be a lot of change in general. With that said, coming to the blockchain space, yes, there's still not enough inclusion or diversity. However, I have seen more of an effort, and people can judge that and say that's not big enough or it's too small or too big, whatever. But I have personally seen more of an effort to be more inclusive and diverse in blockchain than I ever saw at my role in corporate America. So that makes me very hopeful, number one. And number two, I'm just going to put on my business hat for a second. Why is diversity and inclusion even important to begin with? Well, if you want to talk money, obviously I'm sure the numbers are different now because blockchain moves so fast, data becomes quickly outdated. But last year, something like less than 5% of all money made in the nearly 800 billion market cap was held by women, and probably even a smaller percentage held by people of color. So that, if you just think numbers from a business perspective, if you could expand your network, why wouldn't you? That's number one. But number two, from more of a human rights perspective, we see what happens if there is not enough diversity or inclusion because of what is called algorithmic biases and algorithmic risk. So we saw that recently with Facebook, and it's the coders are coding the algorithms. And I don't think that coders are meant to be malicious or malevolent, but everybody has their own perspective and their own lens, even when it comes to coding. So if we in the crypto blockchain world are all in this experiment together to hopefully have a better world, then we at the very beginning need to make sure we have as much diversity and inclusion as possible so we broaden the scope of our lenses. And that's why it's really, really important. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. If I may just add something, I really love the way that you described sort of the diversity in business terms. I really think that that's the way that we ought to be talking about it a little bit more, because people just look at it as more of a social thing, right? A lot of times they don't understand the numbers behind it. But for a lot of business people out there, if the numbers were as upfront as you just presented it, hey, let's look at expanding and hiring different genders, hiring different nationalities, different colors, etc. How much, what percentage can we expand our networks, our businesses by? If those numbers are out there, I think people will quickly see that there's so much opportunity just in that, aside from obviously the social factor, which is important as well. But for business people, I think that's extremely important.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So what's next? I mean, what are you working on next? What are your thoughts on tomorrow?
Well, I have my own startup on the side. So the LA Blockchain Lab, we are all volunteers helping to build this blockchain ecosystem. And then I have my own startup that was actually conceived at Richard Branson's Blockchain Summit. And the concept was, how do we use blockchain to help artists? And today we see tools out there like GoFundMe, Kickstarter, Patreon to help with fundraising. But we don't really see any other tools with well, what about like the business logistics, the accounting, the legal forms? We don't really see any, or budgeting. We don't really see those. And we don't really see a community for artists to go to know who they could subcontract with or collaborate with, kind of like an Angie's List. So what we thought about is we're creating a platform that provides all of those tools. A GoFundMe meets Angie's List meets LegalZoom. And in addition to that, then this is actually where I have difficulty explaining, because this is something that doesn't exist yet, but only blockchain can really make it happen. It's the data sharing between patrons and users, and now we're going to embed corporate sponsors. It's the data sharing, the data monetization, and micro rewards. So we're working on coming out with some more details around that. And we're also finding that the platform, although we conceived it for artists, is much bigger than that. It can be used for athletes, it can be used for nonprofits, church events, you name it. So we're really excited to launch that. We've got our first project we're working with, the perhaps you've seen the Banking on Bitcoin documentary. The documentarians are making a blockchain docuseries, and they're using our platform for that once we launch it. So we're very excited, and I will keep you posted.
Well, that sounds really awesome. That sounds great. And where can people find out more information about your projects, or just your information about yourself, your socials? Would you like to share any of that with us?
Sure. So feel free to go to our Los Angeles blockchainlab.org and to learn more about that. I can be followed on Twitter at Heidi_Pease, and that's HEIDI, and then my last name, PEASE. And then for Proof of Art, we are sort of in stealth mode still, but please sign up on our newsletter on our website, and that's proof-of-art.io.
That's excellent. Thank you so much, Heidi. It was really great talking with you, and we'll put up the links on our webpage, and everyone can find you there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.